Daniel stood outside his small home in Texas, staring up at the night sky that no longer belonged to humanity alone. Bright silver lights moved across the heavens, too steady and too sharp to be airplanes. The world had already learned the truth on the news. Those were not stars, not comets, not satellites. They were alien ships. Massive ships that had entered orbit, casting shadows over cities and oceans, their presence impossible to ignore. People were terrified. Some prayed, some cried, and some simply stared in silence, waiting for the end. Daniel was one of those who stared, unable to look away, feeling both fear and wonder. His sister Laura lived thousands of miles away in Ohio. She had called him earlier that day, her voice trembling. She taught at an elementary school, and when the announcement came, her students had all stopped working and turned to the windows, pointing at the streaks of light in the sky. "They're here," one little boy whispered, and the whole classroom fell silent. Laura tried to stay calm for the children, but her heart beat wildly. She told Daniel she was scared, and he admitted he was too. Yet what comforted them both was that they were scared together. The aliens did not keep Earth waiting long. Within hours of arriving, they broadcast their first message. Every screen, every radio, every device was hijacked by the same cold voice. "This planet now belongs to the Cathari Dominion. You will submit. Resistance is impossible." The message was repeated in different languages, though the alien speech often sounded broken, mechanical, like a machine struggling to copy human sounds. The Cathari appeared on screens as tall beings with silver skin and faintly glowing eyes. Their voices echoed without warmth. They expected humanity to fall on its knees in terror. Daniel watched from his living room as the President of the United States appeared on live television. He was connected directly to the Alien Council through a special broadcast link. Everyone held their breath. This was the first real conversation between Earth and another intelligent species. The president began with calm, measured words, but when the alien representative spoke, something unexpected happened. The translation device stumbled, turning the alien's attempt at English into something strange. "You will obey your chicken," the alien said, his voice serious. The president blinked, then chuckled, trying to hide it. But the sound carried through the microphones, a human laugh in the middle of terror. For a brief moment, the whole world was confused. Then laughter began to spread. It started small, nervous giggles in living rooms, teachers covering smiles in classrooms, newscasters biting their lips. Soon people everywhere began to laugh, not because the situation wasn't serious, but because the seriousness itself had cracked. Fear was heavy, but laughter made it lighter, even just for a heartbeat. The aliens had expected silence and obedience. Instead, they were met with laughter. Laura noticed it right away in her classroom. The children who had been so frightened now whispered and snickered. One boy drew a picture of the alien saying, "Obey your chicken," while holding a rubber chicken in his hand. Laura almost scolded him, but then she found herself smiling. The fear that had gripped her chest all morning loosened. She realized something very strange. Laughter gave them strength. In Texas, Daniel joined his co-workers at the small engineering office where they built parts for wind turbines. No one was working anymore. They sat around a radio, listening to repeated alien broadcasts. "Submit or be destroyed," the aliens said again and again. But every time the voice stumbled over words, someone laughed. Soon, jokes began to spread through text messages and social media. People compared the alien ships to soup bowls or overturned buckets. Memes appeared online showing aliens holding shopping lists or getting lost at gas stations. Within hours, what could have been humanity's darkest day turned into a strange mix of fear and comedy. But fear was still there. No one doubted that the aliens had weapons powerful enough to destroy the planet. Military satellites showed glimpses of their warships, bristling with energy cannons and unknown technology. Governments held emergency meetings. World leaders discussed surrender, defense, and survival. Yet outside those rooms, ordinary people continued to laugh. Humor became the shield they didn't know they had. Daniel spent that night with his neighbors. They gathered on the porch with lanterns, watching the ships shimmer above them. Some neighbors were crying, others praying. But when a teenager made a joke about the aliens looking like glowing traffic cops, the whole group laughed. For the first time since the invasion began, they felt less alone, less powerless. Daniel thought of Laura and wondered if she was also laughing with her students somewhere in Ohio. He hoped she was. On the second day, the aliens demanded another broadcast. Their leader appeared again, towering in silver, eyes glowing brighter. "Your humor will end," he said in a deep voice. "You will know your place." But the translator twisted the words again. Instead of "know your place," it came out as "kiss your plate." The silence that followed lasted only 2 seconds before people all over the world burst out laughing. Jokes about plates filled social media. Children in Laura's class made paper plates with alien faces on them. Even some news anchors laughed openly during broadcasts. The aliens had meant to inspire fear, but instead they became part of humanity's greatest comedy show. By evening, something unexpected began to happen. The fear that had gripped the world lessened. People went back to work, even with alien ships still overhead. Street performers dressed up as aliens and acted silly, drawing crowds. Online comedians gained millions of views for their skits mocking the invaders. Daniel, though not a comedian, started recording short videos with his co-workers where they pretended to be aliens confused by human inventions like microwaves and lawnmowers. To his surprise, those videos spread quickly, giving more people a reason to smile. Laura's classroom became a stage for small plays. The children acted as aliens, walking stiffly and saying silly lines like "kiss your plate." Instead of crying in fear, they laughed so hard they rolled on the floor. Laura realized that these children, who had been so scared just a day earlier, were now stronger because they could laugh at what frightened them. That night she called Daniel again. Both siblings laughed over the phone as they shared stories of the jokes they had heard. For the first time, they believed humanity might have a chance, but the aliens were not laughing. In their council chambers above Earth, they argued. Their plan of domination had worked on countless other worlds. They arrived, they threatened, and the planets submitted in silence. Yet here, humans did not bow. They laughed. The council found this deeply unsettling. Laughter was foreign to them. They had no concept of humor. Every sound humans made when laughing seemed to the aliens like a strange, unpredictable weapon. Daniel, Laura, and millions of others did not yet know it. But humanity had found the one power that no alien fleet could match. It was not missiles or lasers, not armies or shields. It was laughter. The simple shared sound of joy that turned fear into something smaller. And as long as humans could laugh together, the aliens would never truly win. As night fell again, Daniel stood once more under the sky. The alien ships still glowed above, but now they seemed less terrifying. Neighbors gathered again, and someone told a joke about aliens ordering fast food. Everyone laughed. The sound carried through the warm night air, rising upward as if to challenge the ships themselves. For the first time, Daniel felt proud rather than afraid. Humanity might be small, but it would not be silent. It would laugh, and that laughter was more powerful than any weapon. And so the story of resistance began, not with bullets, not with war, but with laughter that refused to die. The aliens had expected submission. Humanity gave them something else entirely. Joy in the face of fear. The alien ships hung over Earth like silent giants, glowing faintly against the sky. People still felt fear, but something had changed. The world was laughing, and the laughter spread faster than fear ever could. Laura sat in her classroom in Ohio, watching her students draw pictures of aliens with silly hats and clumsy shoes. Just a day ago, those same children had cried and whispered in fear. Now they laughed so much that Laura had to remind them to keep their voices down. She felt the same strange strength they did. Humor was protecting them from despair. Across the country in Texas, Daniel scrolled through his phone during his lunch break at the small engineering firm. The internet was flooded with jokes, drawings, and short videos mocking the alien invaders. Someone had created a song about the aliens' mistranslation, "Obey Your Chicken," and it was already being played on radio stations. Another group of students had filmed a skit where they offered aliens plates to kiss. Daniel laughed until his eyes watered. For the first time, he realized humanity might not be broken at all. They were afraid, yes, but they were not crushed. The aliens, however, were confused. In their ships, the Cathari Council watched countless transmissions from Earth. Instead of pleas for mercy or offers of surrender, they saw humans laughing, joking, and mocking. On other planets they had conquered, fear always came first. Once fear ruled, obedience followed. But humans were different. Fear had come, yet laughter grew stronger. The council debated furiously. Some believed the humans were mocking them to provoke anger. Others thought humans were simply too foolish to understand the danger. None of them could grasp the real truth. Laughter was resistance. Back on Earth, late-night television shows that had been canceled during the first day of invasion returned on the second night. Hosts appeared in front of cameras, their faces serious at first. But then they began to joke. One host asked, "Do you think the aliens will take coupons?" Another said, "If they conquer Earth, will they finally fix traffic lights?" The studio audience laughed loudly, and soon people at home laughed too. These shows were watched across the world. Even people who did not understand every word still understood the laughter. Fear had expected silence, but joy filled the air instead. Laura noticed her students growing braver with every passing hour. During recess, they played a new game. Some pretended to be aliens, marching stiffly and saying, "Submit or kiss your plate." The others laughed and pretended to defeat them with jokes. Laura watched, amazed. Children who had been too scared to sleep the night before were now pretending to fight aliens with humor. It was as if laughter itself was a shield. Daniel became part of this movement without even planning it. With his co-workers, he recorded short videos during breaks. In one, he wore a shiny cooking pot on his head, pretending to be an alien confused by Earth's door handles. In another, he and his friend acted as aliens trying to use a microwave, pressing every button but never opening the door. These videos were uploaded online, and to Daniel's surprise, thousands of people watched them within hours. Comments poured in from all over the world. "This made me laugh for the first time today. I showed this to my kids, and they're smiling again." Daniel realized his silly acts were giving people courage. The aliens tried to strike back with stronger broadcasts. On the third day, the Cathari leader appeared again. His tall, glowing form filled screens everywhere. "Your laughter insults us," he declared. "You will be punished." But as always, the translation device twisted his words. Instead of insults us, it came out as tickles us. The world erupted in laughter again. Comedians turned the phrase into new jokes. Children drew pictures of aliens being tickled. And social media spread the phrase like wildfire. Every time the aliens tried to show power, humans turned it into humor. Laura's school joined a larger effort. Teachers across the city encouraged students to write funny stories or perform skits about the aliens. Instead of lessons filled with fear, classrooms became filled with imagination and laughter. Laura's students even made a small play where the aliens came to Earth, demanded submission, but were defeated by a pie in the face. Parents came to watch, and for an hour, no one thought about fear. They only thought about joy. Daniel's town also changed. Local cafes hosted comedy nights where people shared alien jokes. Street performers dressed in silver costumes and pretended to stumble through human customs. Entire communities gathered to laugh together. Daniel saw something he never expected. People uniting not through weapons or armies but through humor. The aliens had wanted to divide and dominate, but laughter brought humanity closer. Yet the fear had not fully disappeared. Late at night, when Daniel sat alone on his porch, he looked up at the glowing ships and wondered if the aliens would attack. He imagined energy weapons destroying cities. He knew the aliens were powerful, and laughter alone might not stop them. Laura felt the same fear when she put her students to bed at night and heard the distant rumble of alien ships moving through the sky. But every morning, when people laughed again, the fear weakened. Inside the alien ships, confusion turned to frustration. The Cathari Council ordered their envoys to study human behavior. Why did these creatures laugh when they should be terrified? Why did jokes spread faster than threats? The envoys watched human videos, listened to comedians, and observed children laughing. They could not understand. For them, laughter had no meaning. Their species lived only with discipline and seriousness. Humor was not part of their world. To them, human laughter was a strange kind of weapon they had never seen before. One alien envoy watched Daniel's video about the microwave again and again. The envoy did not laugh but felt something unusual, a strange pull toward curiosity. Another envoy observed Laura's classroom play and found the sounds of children laughing confusing but strangely soothing. Slowly, without even realizing it, the aliens began to feel something they had never felt before. It was not yet laughter, but it was the beginning. Back on Earth, Laura called Daniel again one evening. They shared stories of what was happening in their towns. Daniel laughed as he told her about a neighbor who had dressed as an alien to deliver pizza. Laura laughed as she described her students throwing paper plates at each other and pretending to be invaders. For a moment, the two siblings forgot the danger above them. They laughed together, and it felt like the world was still theirs. The galaxy was watching too. Other civilizations who had once feared the Kethari now listened to human broadcasts. They saw a small planet resisting not with weapons but with joy. Whispers spread across the stars. Perhaps the Kethari were not unstoppable after all. Perhaps laughter was stronger than fear. Daniel did not know about the whispers. Laura did not know either. They only knew their own lives, their own small acts of humor. But those small acts mattered. Every joke, every laugh, every silly drawing or video became a spark of courage. Humanity was not kneeling. Humanity was standing tall, shoulders shaking with laughter. The aliens had come expecting submission. They found something else. They found a species that would rather laugh than surrender. They found a planet that refused to cry in silence, and as the days went by, humanity's laughter grew louder, echoing across Earth and beyond, reaching even the stars where fear once ruled. The days after the alien arrival were unlike anything Earth had ever known. At first there was panic, then fear, then something strange. Laughter. The laughter had not disappeared. It had grown stronger. News channels showed crowds gathering in parks holding signs with jokes about the aliens. Comedy shows had returned with new energy. Even people who had lost their jobs because of the invasion found ways to laugh at the situation. What the aliens thought would be submission had turned into a movement. Daniel became a small but important part of this wave. His short comedy videos recorded with his co-workers continued to spread online. He had never been popular before, but now millions of people were sharing his silly alien skits. One morning as he walked to the office, a stranger stopped him on the street. "You're the guy from the video, right?" The man asked with a smile. "You made my kids laugh last night." "Thank you." Daniel felt embarrassed but proud too. He realized he wasn't just making jokes. He was helping people feel strong. In Ohio, Laura was also part of the new spirit. Her classroom had become more than a place of learning. It had become a stage for courage. Every day, her students made plays, drawings, or songs about the aliens. Parents visited the school and joined the fun. Some even brought costumes, dressing up as aliens for the children to laugh at. Laura saw something powerful. Laughter made children brave. They no longer cried when the alien ships hummed above. Instead, they shouted their jokes louder as if to answer the noise with their own voices. But not everyone felt the same. In government offices, leaders worried. Military generals and scientists argued that laughter could not stop energy weapons. The aliens still had fleets large enough to destroy cities. Some leaders pushed for surrender, saying humor was only making the invaders angry. Others wanted to launch weapons, though they doubted Earth's technology could compete. Behind closed doors, fear still ruled. But outside, in the streets and in homes, people laughed together. On the fourth day of invasion, the Alien Council gave another broadcast. Their leader's silver face appeared on every screen. "Your jokes are meaningless," the alien said. "You will suffer consequences." The words were meant to be threatening, but the translator stumbled again. Instead of meaningless, it said meatless. And instead of consequences, it said cookies. The world froze for a second, then roared with laughter. Within minutes, jokes about meatless cookies filled the internet. Bakers created new recipes called alien meatless cookies. Cafes sold them to crowds that laughed as they ate. The aliens had tried to frighten the world, but they had only given humans another joke. Daniel watched the broadcast with his neighbors, and they laughed until tears rolled down their cheeks. "Meatless cookies," one shouted. Daniel's neighbor, an old woman, brought out a tray of real cookies and said, "I made these for the aliens, but I forgot the meat." Everyone laughed harder. It was a moment of pure joy, even with the ships glowing above them. In her classroom, Laura's students refused to do math that day. They wanted to write stories about meatless cookies instead. One boy wrote a story about an alien baker who traveled across the galaxy searching for sugar. A girl drew a picture of an alien holding a giant cookie larger than Earth. Laura laughed with them, realizing that these children were defeating fear in their own way. They were too young to fight with weapons, but they could fight with joy. The aliens could not understand what was happening. Their council grew more divided. Some demanded they fire their weapons to end the laughter once and for all. Others worried that violence would only make the humans more united. Their envoys reported strange feelings when they observed humans. Some envoys described the sound of laughter as disruptive, yet also curious. For the first time in their history, the Kethari were unsure of themselves. Meanwhile, Daniel's videos caught the attention of a local news station. He was invited to speak about why he made them. Sitting in front of the camera, Daniel felt nervous. But when the reporter asked him why he mocked the aliens, he answered simply, "Because if we stop laughing, we'll only have fear. And fear is what they want." His words spread across the country, played on radios and shared online. People quoted him in cafes, schools, and even government meetings. Daniel, an ordinary engineer, had spoken what many already felt. Laughter was not weakness. It was strength. Laura also became known in her town. Parents praised her for protecting children's spirits. Local newspapers wrote about her classroom plays and how they gave courage to families. Laura never thought of herself as a leader, but when she saw her students smiling in the face of fear, she knew she was doing something important. She thought of Daniel often and hoped he felt the same. The alien broadcast continued, but each one turned into another joke. Submit to your destiny became, submit to your dentist. We are your rulers became, we are your rulers, 12 inches long. The more they spoke, the more humanity laughed. The galaxy listened too. Planets once enslaved by the Cathari watched human broadcasts secretly. For the first time, they saw hope. They saw a small world refusing to bow, and they wondered if they too could rise. At night, Laura sat on her porch after putting her students' plays online. She looked up at the silver ships glowing against the stars. She knew the danger was still real. The aliens had weapons beyond imagination. But she also knew something else. Humanity had discovered its voice. They would not kneel. They would laugh instead. That thought gave her peace. Daniel on the same night also looked up at the sky. He held his phone, reading messages from strangers thanking him for his videos. People from faraway countries wrote to him, saying his humor helped them feel brave. Daniel had never been a hero. He was just an engineer who liked to make jokes. Yet now he realized that was enough. Every laugh was a victory. The aliens in their cold council chambers struggled to understand. Why did humans not break? Why did jokes spread faster than commands? They began to fear something they had never feared before, the sound of laughter. And as Earth laughed louder, the Cathari's control grew weaker. The galaxy had expected Earth to fall in silence. Instead, it rose in joy. And the story was far from over. Humanity's greatest battle was not with weapons or fleets. It was with humor, spreading across the world like light in the darkness. Daniel, Laura, and billions of others were part of it, even if they did not yet realize how much it would change the future, for laughter was no longer just a sound. It was a weapon, and it was shaking the galaxy. The alien ship still floated above Earth, silver giants in the sky. Weeks had passed since their arrival, and yet no weapon had been fired. The Cathari Dominion had conquered dozens of worlds before, but Earth was different. They had expected obedience, silence, and submission. Instead, they were met with laughter. Every demand they made, every broadcast they sent had been twisted into jokes. The humans did not break. They laughed harder each day. For the aliens, it was more dangerous than any weapon. Daniel sat in his office in Texas, editing another comedy video. His coworkers crowded around, watching as he added silly sound effects to a clip of himself pretending to be a confused alien at a grocery store. He pressed play and the room filled with laughter. "Perfect," one of his coworkers said, wiping tears from his eyes. They uploaded the video, and within hours, thousands of people had already watched it. Daniel never thought of himself as a leader, but he had become one of many voices keeping the world strong with humor. In Ohio, Laura's classroom had grown into something bigger than she ever imagined. The school held weekly plays now, with entire grades joining together to perform skits about the aliens. Parents, teachers, and neighbors came to watch. Children wore silver costumes made from tin foil and spoke in silly robotic voices. The audience laughed so loudly that sometimes the sound carried outside where people passing by stopped to listen. Laura sat in the front row each time, laughing with the rest. She saw hope in the children's smiles. She saw courage in their laughter. The aliens, however, were unraveling. Inside their massive ships, the Cathari Council argued more fiercely than ever. Their plan had always been simple: appear, threaten, conquer. But Earth did not fit the plan. Their soldiers, trained to be disciplined and serious, had begun to show signs of weakness. Some envoys sent to observe humans returned with strange reports. They described laughter as a sound that made their bodies feel lighter, though they could not explain why. One soldier confessed that he felt less obedient after hearing children laugh. Another admitted he found himself trying to copy the sound, though he did not know what it meant. The council grew alarmed. Laughter was spreading like a disease among their ranks. They ordered their envoys to avoid human broadcasts, but it was too late. Many had already listened. Many had already changed. One such envoy, a young alien named Rethan, sat alone in his quarters. He replayed Daniel's video of the grocery store over and over. He did not understand the humor, but something inside him stirred each time he watched. The humans were not afraid even though they were weaker. That puzzled him. He began to wonder if strength was not what his people thought it was. Perhaps strength was not silence and fear. Perhaps strength was laughter. Back on Earth, the laughter movement reached new heights. Entire cities organized comedy festivals. People dressed as aliens and paraded through the streets, carrying giant props like paper cookies or oversized rubber chickens. News channels broadcast these festivals live and millions tuned in to watch. Even in countries far apart where people spoke different languages, laughter united them. A joke told in one language often needed no translation at all. The sound of laughter itself carried the message. Laura noticed her students had changed too. They were not just laughing anymore. They were teaching each other to be brave. When one child felt scared, the others told jokes until he smiled. They had created their own defense, and it was working. Laura thought about the future and realized these children would never forget this lesson. They would grow up knowing that courage could come from joy. Daniel received a message from a group of comedians in New York. They wanted him to join an online broadcast where people from all over the world could perform skits together. Nervous but excited, Daniel agreed. That night, he sat in front of a camera while comedians from France, Brazil, India, and dozens of other countries appeared one by one. Each made jokes about the aliens and everyone laughed together. Daniel performed his skit about aliens trying to order fast food. And when people across the world laughed, he felt something powerful. Humanity was united not by armies but by humor. The aliens tried to regain control. They broadcast a message saying they would unleash their weapons if humans did not stop mocking them. The words were meant to inspire terror, but the translation device betrayed them once again. Instead of weapons, it said weasels. "We will unleash our weasels," the alien leader declared. The world exploded with laughter. Within hours, drawings of alien armies armed with weasels filled the internet. Children pretended to be aliens chasing each other with stuffed animals. Even soldiers in military bases laughed at the absurdity. The aliens had lost all authority, but for the Cathari the situation was no joke. Their soldiers began to disobey orders. Some refused to attend meetings. Others secretly tuned into human broadcasts to hear more jokes. The council punished them harshly, but the problem only grew. Laughter was a contagion they could not contain. Rethan, the young envoy, made a decision. He secretly contacted a human channel and requested to speak. When he appeared on screen, millions of people gasped. An alien had never spoken directly to humans before. His silver skin glowed and his voice trembled. "I do not understand your laughter," he said slowly. "But I feel lighter when I hear it. I want to learn." For a moment, the world went silent. Then someone laughed gently and the sound spread. Rethan listened carefully. For the first time, he tried to laugh too. It came out awkward, a broken sound, but it was enough. Humanity cheered. Laura watched the broadcast with her students and they clapped and laughed together. Daniel saw it too and he felt tears in his eyes. If even one alien could learn to laugh, maybe others could too. Maybe the invasion would end not with war, but with joy. Inside the alien ships, Rethan's act caused chaos. Some soldiers supported him secretly, admitting they also wanted to laugh. Others called him a traitor. The council raged, but they could not erase what had already happened. The image of a silver-skinned alien trying to laugh had spread across Earth and beyond. It was too late. The change had begun. On Earth, people felt stronger than ever. Comedy festivals grew larger. Families gathered nightly to share jokes. Children fell asleep smiling instead of crying. The alien threat was still real, but it no longer controlled them. Humanity had turned fear into a stage for humor, and even the invaders were beginning to change. As night fell, Daniel sat on his porch again, looking up at the glowing ships. This time he did not feel fear. He thought of Rethan trying to laugh and smiled. He thought of Laura's students throwing paper plates at each other and laughed softly. Above him, the silver giants still hovered, but they no longer seemed unstoppable. Humanity had already won something important. They had won the right to laugh in the face of fear. And somewhere inside those alien ships, laughter had already taken root. It was only a matter of time before it spread further. The Cathari had expected silence and obedience. Instead, they were hearing the sound of joy, and joy was more powerful than any weapon they carried. The alien ships still glowed in the skies, but the fear they once brought was fading. Across the world, people laughed more than they trembled. Cafes sold alien-shaped cookies. Comedians filled theaters, and children made costumes from foil to pretend they were invaders who slipped on banana peels. Humanity had found strength in humor, and it was spreading everywhere. Even in places where war had once left scars, people joined together, sharing jokes as a way to feel alive. The Cathari had expected obedience, but Earth gave them something that shook them to their core, laughter that never ended. Daniel felt this change more each day. He walked through his town and saw laughter on every corner. Posters with alien jokes covered shop windows. Street performers made crowds roar with skits about silver-skinned conquerors who could not figure out how to use a toilet. Daniel was still making videos, though now he worked with other creators around the world. One evening, he recorded a skit with a comedian from France and another from Brazil. They each played aliens trying to order food in different languages, and the result was pure chaos. The video spread across the globe, uniting people in laughter. Daniel realized he was not just an engineer anymore. He was part of something much larger, a global resistance built not on guns but on joy. Laura's classroom had also grown into something greater. The weekly plays became community events. Parents, teachers, and even local officials came to watch the children act out scenes where aliens demanded surrender, but slipped on pies or fell into mud puddles. Laura watched proudly as her students performed with confidence. These were the same children who had once been too frightened to sleep. Yet now they stood on stage laughing at fear itself. She knew they were learning a lesson they would carry forever, that courage could come from joy. But while humans laughed, the Cathari Council was falling apart. Their meetings were filled with anger and confusion. Reports showed that laughter was spreading among their soldiers. Some had begun to imitate the sound. Others refused to follow orders, distracted by the strange new feeling that laughter gave them. The council tried to enforce discipline, but discipline was no longer enough. The disease of humor had infected their ranks. Rethan, the envoy who had tried to laugh on a human broadcast, became a symbol. Humans remembered his awkward attempt to giggle, and they replayed it in endless loops. Children drew pictures of him smiling. Songs were written about him. But more importantly, other aliens began to follow his example. A few dared to laugh in private. Some even joined human broadcasts, speaking clumsily but sincerely. "We do not understand laughter," one alien admitted, "but we want to learn." The world cheered. Daniel and Laura both watched these broadcasts with tears in their eyes. It felt like history was changing before them. Humanity was not only resisting the invasion, it was changing the invaders themselves. The aliens had come with weapons and ships, but they were leaving with something they never expected: joy. Still, the council tried one last time to take control. They announced that Earth would be punished if laughter did not stop. They threatened to fire their weapons at cities. People held their breath, afraid the end had come. But then the translator betrayed them again. Instead of punished, it said polished. Instead of weapons, it said wafers. The leader of the Cathari had declared with great seriousness, "You will be polished by our wafers." The silence that followed lasted only seconds. Then the entire planet roared with laughter. Memes of alien wafers spread faster than any warning. Bakers once again filled shops with cookies shaped like spaceships. The aliens had destroyed their own threat with their clumsy words. The council could not continue. Their soldiers refused to attack. Many openly laughed. Their power had collapsed. At last, the great fleet began to move. Slowly, the silver giants pulled away from Earth's skies. People gathered outside their homes to watch, cheering and clapping. Some even shouted jokes toward the heavens, sending laughter upward as the ships faded into the distance. Humanity had won, not with firepower, but with joy. Laura stood with her students in the schoolyard, pointing at the ships as they left. "They're going home," one child said with wide eyes. Laura smiled. "Yes, they are. And they'll never forget what they learned here." The children clapped, then began to chant jokes, their voices rising into the air like a song. Laura felt tears roll down her cheeks. The danger had passed, and the world had discovered something powerful. Laughter could protect just as much as walls and weapons. Daniel stood with his neighbors, watching the sky clear. The old woman who once served cookies shouted, "Take our wafers with you." And everyone laughed again. Daniel felt pride swell in his chest. He thought of Laura and her students. He thought of the comedians, the artists, the ordinary people who refused to give up. Humanity had stood together and discovered its own strength. He realized that laughter was not just a joke. It was a bond that united billions of people. And now even the galaxy would hear it. Far away in their retreat, the Cathari were not the same. Soldiers whispered jokes to each other, though they did not fully understand them. Rethan and others like him encouraged their people to explore humor. The Cathari Council had lost power, and with it their fear-driven rule began to crumble. For the first time in history, a conquered species had changed its conquerors not with weapons but with joy, and the legend of Earth spread quickly. Across the stars, enslaved worlds heard the story. They whispered to each other. The humans did not kneel. They laughed. Daniel and Laura did not know the full impact of their actions. They only knew their own small stories. A video that made millions smile. A classroom play that gave children courage. But those small acts had changed the galaxy. Humanity had proven that courage did not always roar. Sometimes, it laughed. On the first night after the aliens left, communities across the world gathered for celebrations. Streets were filled with lights, music, and laughter. People told their favorite jokes from the invasion days. Children wore foil costumes and carried toy plates and cookies. Fireworks lit the skies where alien ships had once hovered. Humanity had survived. More than that, it had triumphed. Laura sat with her students during the celebration, laughing as they acted out one last play about the aliens and their wafers. She felt hope for their future. Daniel joined his neighbors as they set up a stage for performers. When his turn came, he stood nervously but proudly in front of the crowd. "We laughed together," he said, his voice strong. "And because we laughed, we are free." The crowd cheered, their voices filled with joy. The story of Earth became a legend. Across galaxies, beings spoke of the small blue planet that defeated fear with laughter. And on Earth itself, people carried on with their lives forever changed. They knew that no matter what came, as long as they could laugh together, they would never truly be defeated. For Daniel, for Laura, for the billions who laughed through fear, the message was clear. The aliens had expected submission. Humanity gave them laughter. And that laughter, simple and human, was strong enough to change the universe forever.